Go on, monster. Help yourself.
On the set of Zardoz, Sean Connery appeared wearing what can be best described as a red diaper, thigh-high leather boots, and a Zapata mustache. Each and every person, including Charlotte Rampling, had questions about his appearance. However, his co-star was not the only one who was perplexed. All of the people in the audience, including the critics and even Connery himself, appeared to be confused at the peculiar cinematic rabbit hole that they had all fallen into. However, hidden beneath the insanity of this now famous outfit is a tale of desperation, ambition, artistic hubris, and an extremely insane chapter in the history of science fiction filmmaking during the 1970s. Let's go back in time. The year is 1973. Deliverance, a film that virtually screamed, "This guy can do anything," was just released, and film director John Boorman has just come off of the huge success of Deliverance, both critically and financially. Boorman, who had the entire world at his disposal, attempted to tackle The Lord of the Rings. However, the budget that was required for Frodo's adventure was too much for United Artists to handle. Following the failure of the project, Boorman, who was still high on creative juice and, to be honest, a significant amount of genuine drugs, made a firm decision. He was not simply interested in producing another movie. The goal of his endeavor was to completely reimagine the genre of science fiction. Zardoz was born as a result of this. What is the idea? A dystopian future in the year 2293, in which humanity is divided into two groups: immortal elites known as Eternals and violent peasants known as Brutals who worship guns. Our protagonist, Zed, who is portrayed by Mr. Connery, is a member of the Brutals. He is a literal killer who was brought up to think that a floating stone god named Zardoz is his holy commander. What was the first scene? That head that is floating in the air comes crashing down from the heavens and spits out guns while proclaiming that the penis is evil and the gun is good. Hi, and welcome to Zardoz. Burt Reynolds was supposed to play the part of Zed when it was first conceived. Reynolds was Boorman's guy after he had just finished Deliverance, but fate had other plans for him. Reynolds was eliminated from the competition due to sickness, probably weariness, and possibly with the intervention of a divine being. Then Sean Connery appeared. In the midst of his career, Connery was in a state of purgatory. Despite the fact that his Bond days were behind him, the shadow of 007 continued to loom big. When Connery saw the possibility, he jumped at it because he was desperate for a job that shouted, "Not James Bond." Despite the fact that it only paid $200,000, which is 50% of the film's total budget of $1 million, Connery required the alteration. Riding a horse while wearing a crimson mankini was the epitome of all things that screamed new beginnings. That now iconic item of clothing? During that time, Boorman's wife, Crystal Cruz, was the one who created it. What she referred to as pure intuition served as the inspiration for her outfit design. For the Eternals, who were described as being metaphysical and sterile, she envisioned robes that were draped and colorless. What about the Brutals? All of the garments had to be practical. In the real world, that meant as little as was humanly possible. What is the end result? In his appearance, Sean Connery appears to be a combination of Prince Valiant and a dancer from the Chippendales. The actress Charlotte Rampling, who played the role of Consuela, was not amused. She had become involved in the production of a film that she considered to be artistic and intellectual. What she ended up with was Boorman's drug-fueled fever dream, which featured Connery in a prominent position, both literally and figuratively. After some time had passed, she recalled her time spent working with Connery in an interview that took place in 2013. She referred to him as seductive and mentioned that he desired to seduce all of the gorgeous girls. "I was a young married woman with my little baby, and I didn't think anything of it," she said, maintaining a professional demeanor throughout the conversation. And yet, despite all of its insanity, Zardoz was driven by ambition. What was happening wasn't merely strange for the purpose of being strange. The movie was laced with deep metaphor, high-concept metaphysics, and a dose of post-hippie disenchantment, thanks to Boorman and William Stair, who also contributed to the writing of the picture. The Eternals lived in a utopia that was so wonderful that they couldn't get enough of it and eventually went insane. Impotence was a problem for men. Those who were punished ceased getting older. Additionally, Immortality had turned into a form of existential confinement. The Brutals, on the other hand, led lifestyles that were harsh and aggressive. But, well, at least they survived. The fulcrum is that of Zed. Zed is a genetically modified version of Superman that was constructed by the puppet master Arthur Frayne, better known as Zardoz. His purpose is to penetrate the eternal sanctum, also known as the Vortex, and destroy it from the inside out. Even so, he does. However, not before absorbing their knowledge, causing revolutions, igniting lust among the asexual elite, and causing Charlotte Rampling's character Consuela to get pregnant. Indeed, in all seriousness, an all-out civil war, a confrontation between psychics, and an operatic score composed by David Monroe that combines medieval instruments with Beethoven's Seventh Symphony are all featured at the climax of the story. Not only does all of that seem chaotic, but the production itself was just as disorderly. The entirety of the film was shot in County Wicklow, Ireland, for a variety of reasons, including tax considerations, and the fact that Boorman lived in the area and wanted to keep it local. It is true that Sean Connery lived at Boorman's house when the filming was taking place, and he even drove himself to the scene in exchange for 50% of the money that was allocated for a driver. Constraints on the budget were extremely tight. Local Irish tourists made up a significant portion of the extras. The firearms, because of the political difficulties in Ireland, it is difficult to obtain. By importing guns, the Irish Republican Army had created a bureaucratic headache. There were also the reshoots that took place. The last sequence, in which Zed and Consuela grow old and pass away together, had to be shot 3 times in order to achieve the desired effect. In the first place, the video was taken down. After that, the negatives were mistakenly exposed to the light. As someone who detested having to wear prosthetics, Connery was not overly enthusiastic. You can almost make out the clenched teeth that are hidden beneath his old makeup by the time you reach the 3rd take. Additionally, in the event that the strangeness was not already strange enough, there was also an attack by a baboon. It turned out that a genuine baboon attacked one of the stunt doubles, who was dressed up in an ape suit, for a weird scene that was being filmed on site. So, why wouldn't you? What a brutal reception it was. The audience members left in large numbers. Those who were waiting in line were even cautioned not to enter. The critics referred to it as confusing, pretentious, and weird to the point of laughter. Time, however, is the great equalizer, as it always has been. The film Zardoz is now considered a cult classic, a dazzling and perplexing artifact of the cinema of the 1970s. Ben Wheatley and other directors have lauded it as a visionary piece of work. Others have referred to it as a monument of artistic extravagance and one that is enjoyable to look at. Roger Ebert referred to it as self-indulgent, but he also acknowledged that it was really weird and eccentric. Is that Connery? It's probably for the best that he never brought it up in conversation too often. Also, let's not overlook that red suit, shall we? When it comes to the history of science fiction, that famed barely there costume has become one of the most recognizable and discussed pictures. Connery's initial promotional photo, which featured him with his arms up and his mustache ablaze, continues to be more famous than the film itself. And the expressions that Charlotte Rampling maintained for the entirety of the movie. A question that is on everyone's mind is, what am I watching? And they are now playing like a Greek chorus of skepticism, echoing that inquiry in silence. But this is when things become really interesting. What was important was the clothes. It exemplified everything that John Boorman was striving to achieve with his filmmaking. Zardoz wasn't just an eccentric experiment, it was a deliberate attempt to dismantle the rigid, often outdated constructs of masculinity, to challenge and reimagine the tropes of science fiction, and to fully embrace the surreal and the strange without apology. It was, in many ways, a cinematic rebellion against formulaic storytelling, against safe and sanitized futures, and against the idea that sci-fi must always be sleek, logical, or grounded in hard science. Yes, it was absurd. Yes, it had moments that felt more like a fever dream than a coherent narrative, but it was also unforgettable. And in an age where the vast majority of films are disposable, evaporating from cultural memory within days of release, that is a remarkable and rare achievement. So the next time you see Sean Connery in that infamous scarlet loincloth, don't be so quick to scoff. Or, okay, go ahead and chuckle a little. It's hard not to. But also, take a moment to appreciate what Zardoz represents. A type of cinema that dared to be weird, that rejected studio formulas in favor of raw, unfiltered imagination. It's a relic of a time when filmmakers had the freedom and the audacity to let their wildest ideas run rampant. It was born from a heady mix of ambition, artistry, and probably a generous dose of whatever was in the 1970s drug cabinet. Zardoz may not be for everyone, but it's a film that sticks with you, and that, in itself, is a triumph. Now is the moment for you to provide feedback. Do you have any thoughts? The strange Z suit that Connery wore was either a stroke of gonzo genius or a tragic wardrobe malfunction that defined an entire film. Could it have been either? In addition, does Zardoz deserve its reputation as a science fiction classic that is misunderstood, or is it still just a gorgeous mess? Post your thoughts in the comments section below.